What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 12 Monday Night Football.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
Okay guys, in this video, I'm going to give you my top DFS picks for this Monday Night Football showdown between the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, NFL Week 12. Let's take a look at this Monday Night showdown between the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, so at the quarterback position, of course, I like Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks. He's averaging 28.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.5 rush attempts per game. He got 10 rush attempts last game, scored 20 fantasy points. He's going to be about 76% owned, projected at 23.1 fantasy points here tonight, but he's $12,600 DraftKings salary. So you got to pay up for Russell Wilson tonight. Now, Vegas thinks there's going to be 48.5 points scored in this game, and they have the Seahawks favored by 6.5. So he's got a middle-of-the-pack matchup here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to have some lineups with Russell Wilson because he's got big upside with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and his potential to score rushing touchdowns. So I like Russell Wilson here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the other quarterback here makes for an interesting play. Carson Wentz from the Philadelphia Eagles, averaging 19.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4.4 rush attempts per game. He has the best possible matchup here. The Seattle Seahawks have the worst defense overall, and they give up the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Carson Wentz is going to be about 40% owned, projected at 17.9 fantasy points here tonight, and he's $10,400 DraftKings salary. Now, Vegas thinks the Eagles are going to be trailing by 6.5, so this is a fantastic matchup in a passing game script. So if the Eagles can somehow protect Carson Wentz, he's got a phenomenal matchup here tonight. So I'm also going to have some lineups with Carson Wentz and a couple of his wide receivers. So I like Russell Wilson more, but the savings in the matchup make Carson Wentz an interesting play here versus the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. For the Philadelphia Eagles, you got Miles Sanders averaging 15.4 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 14.6 rush attempts per game and 5 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 70% of the snaps, and he's going to be about 49% owned, projected at 15.3 fantasy points here tonight. He's $9,200 DraftKings salary. He's got a great matchup here versus the Seahawks. And even though the Philadelphia Eagles should be trailing in this game, Miles Sanders is involved in the passing game, so he's not going to be game scripted out of this one. Even if they fall behind, he's going to be out there catching passes. So I like Miles Sanders here versus the Seattle Seahawks. And for the Seattle Seahawks, we have the return of Chris Carson, who's averaging 17.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 11 rush attempts per game and 4.2 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 45% owned, projected at 14.9 fantasy points here tonight. He's $8,800 DraftKings salary. And with the Seattle Seahawks favored by 6.5, this could turn into a running game script for Chris Carson. But I think I'm just going to pay the extra $400 for Miles Sanders. So I don't mind Chris Carson here. He doesn't have huge volume, 11 rush attempts per game. That's not eye-popping, but he should get some goal line carries here. So I prefer Miles Sanders over Chris Carson here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, and if you're looking for a super low salary sleeper pick here at the running back position, take a look at Boston Scott from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's averaging 6.9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.6 rush attempts per game and 2.1 pass targets per game. But take a look at his last 3 games. He scored 8, 14, and 10 fantasy points in the last 3 games, and he's only going to be about 9% owned, projected at 6 fantasy points here tonight, but he's only 1,000 DraftKings salary. So he'll make your lineup different, open up your salary for some other players. If he can find the end zone, he could find himself in the winning lineup. So I like Boston Scott as a high-risk, high-reward play here versus the Seattle Seahawks.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. For the Seattle Seahawks, we have DK Metcalf averaging 19.9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7.7 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 96% of the snaps. He's going to be about 51% owned, projected at 17.8 fantasy points here tonight. He's 11,400 DraftKings salary, so they got his salary priced way up. It's hard to ignore this guy. He's got major upside, gets a ton of red zone targets, so I like DK Metcalf here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. But if you want to save a little bit of salary with a wide receiver that's got similar upside from the Seattle Seahawks, it's Tyler Lockett, averaging 19.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 8.8 pass targets per game. So Tyler Lockett is getting on average 1 more pass target per game than DK Metcalf. He's averaging just about the same amount of points per game, on the field for 91% of the snaps. He's going to be about 50% owned, projected at 17.7 fantasy points here tonight, and he's only 9,600 DraftKings salary. Compare that to DK Metcalf at 11,400. That's some pretty significant salary savings playing Tyler Lockett over DK Metcalf. It's a coin flip between these two guys, but because of the lower price tag, getting more targets per game with similar upside, I like Tyler Lockett here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, for the Philadelphia Eagles, I like Travis Fulgham, averaging 14.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 8 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 27% owned, projected at 12.4 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,800 DraftKings salary, and with the Philadelphia Eagles trailing by 6.5, this should be a passing game script. He's got the best possible matchup, with the Seattle Seahawks having the worst defense overall and giving up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. So this is probably my favorite play of the slate when you consider the price tag, the game script, the matchup, targets per game, and the lower ownership. So I like Travis Fulgham here versus the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. I like Dallas Goddard from the Philadelphia Eagles, averaging 10.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.2 pass targets per game. He scored 19 fantasy points last week off of 6 pass targets. He's going to be about 23% owned, projected at 11.2 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,400 DraftKings salary. So with the Philadelphia Eagles trailing in this game, should be a passing game script. Dallas Goddard is an excellent tight end, so I like Dallas Goddard here versus the Seattle Seahawks. So Dallas Goddard is probably the only tight end that I'm going to consider playing here tonight. The other tight ends on the slate, Will Dissly, Richard Rodgers, Jacob Hollister. Just not enough pass targets for me to feel comfortable playing those guys, but they are all much lower salary. So if I were to pick a tight end here, a low salary tight end to play tonight, it probably would be Jacob Hollister from the Seattle Seahawks for only $1,400 DraftKings salary. He got 3, 1, and 7 pass targets in the last 3 games. So if he can get 3 to 7 targets, that's a steal for only $1,400 DraftKings salary. He's going to be about 15% owned, projected at 5.9 fantasy points here tonight. And the Philadelphia Eagles give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So good matchup here. So as a high risk, high reward play, I like Jacob Hollister here versus the Philadelphia Eagles.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.